My name is Nicholas Martinez, and I am the co-founder of Transform Education Now, whose mission is to work alongside parents, community to ensure that every child has the opportunity to live out their dreams. I'm here today because we, as adults, as education professionals, along with our elected leaders, have the moral obligation to provide for the 92,000 students in our community. The budget challenge we are facing is daunting, and I recognize the tremendous effort our board and our district leaders have put into solving it, but there is still considerable work left to do. As this board continues to weigh possible solutions, I urge them to keep two things in mind. First, prior to the COVID-19 health crisis and remote learning, there were thousands of students across this district who were not adequately served by our system. There were hundreds of schools across the district that did not have the resources they needed in order to be able to provide the learning environments they know their students deserve. Second, you have the power and the responsibility to change that reality. We know that as budgets get tighter, they do not become more equitable. Yet right now, our district has the opportunity to lead with the most marginalized at the heart of these decisions. As we make these decisions over the next 24 hours, we must ensure equitable distribution of both resources with greater emphasis on historically and systemically marginalized students in communities, and ensure that all proposed cuts do not disproportionately affect schools primarily serving Black, Brown, and working class students. Equal cuts will not have the equal impact across different communities because our communities do not have equal needs. That means we must invest in the social and emotional and academic needs of all of our students, but prioritize those who have felt the outsized effect of remote learning. That means you are doing everything in your power as a district to protect our Black and Brown educators and those who are the most effective in the classroom and who have chosen to serve students in our highest need schools. It means that not allowing budget challenges to allow the goals of the Black Excellence Resolution to be put on the shelf until it is easier to accomplish. We cannot allow the challenge in front of us to be used as an excuse to further perpetuate educational violence against marginalized communities. Our students deserve an education that matches their brilliance, and they deserve it now. I am honored to introduce Ms. Retha Jenkins, a parent leader with Transform Education Now, an educator and a mother in our district.
Thank you for inviting me to this space. I'm Retha Jenkins, parent educator and DPS alumnus. My journey began at Smith, Hamilton, Montclair, Hallett, and then I was bused to Southmore, Home, and George Washington in the Southeast. And I have to say it was the administrators and teachers such as Joe Sandoval, Rachel Starks, Annie Dalton, Jacqueline Theus, Mr. King, Mr. Ababacher, who connected with my experience as a bused kid and changed the trajectory of my life. So even back then, they were few and far between. So don't cut the educators of color, knowing the demographics of our district, knowing the research about students who have educators who look like them. My next point is some old wisdom. Grandpa always said it's better to be broke with all your bills paid than to be broke and owing everybody. All right. He also said prioritize, pay your mortgage, pay your rent. At least if your utilities get cut and you have to use candles, people will think you're being romantic. All right. But if you get evicted and your new clothes are out on the street, they're for the pickings. All right. Also, as a working parent, even before it became environmentally popular, Grandma taught us to wash out that jelly jar, reuse it, use paper, use hand towels instead of paper towels, and use power strips to cut down on vampire power loss. So we as parents, we already know this, right? How to make tough decisions in order to reach our goals. But what are our goals? What are our priorities? As a parent, my priority are getting out of debt and saving for college and saving enough to give to the less fortunate, because it's more blessed to give than to, all right, I know somebody knows what I'm talking about. And also it's a wise man or woman who leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So we want a district that works as hard as we do as parents and that prioritizes the sacrifices that we'll need to make in this unprecedented time. We talk equity, let's put our money where our mouth is. Parents, we already have seen that we can use technology to close the achievement gap. So let's do it. Let's get on it. Our kids don't have to play video games all day. And I know I have the authority to speak on this topic from multiple perspectives. As you can see, I've been connected to DPS for pretty much my whole educational journey. And my ikigai, the Japanese term for life purpose, and what gives your life meaning, is closing the equity gap for underrepresented students. So I know I've been prepared for such a time as this. I'll finish with an excerpt from a 2011-2014 U.S. Department of Education piece of research. It was also referenced in the Colorado Public Radio Losing Ground series. The title of it is Expansive Survey of America's Public Schools Reveals Troubling Racial Disparities. And this quote stuck with me. The 2011-2012 release shows that access to preschool programs is not a reality for much of the country. In addition, students of color are suspended more often than white students, and Black and Latino students are significantly more likely to have teachers with less experience who aren't paid as much as their colleagues in other schools. My question to you is, or my statement for you is, let's budget to change this scenario for 2020. Now for another 10 parent, John Johnson.
Hi, my name is John Johnson. Thanks. I am humbled to have the opportunity to be a part of this platform today. And the concern through the summer and through this COVID stage that we're currently living in is how that will be. The budget is the big thing. I know there's new changes that have come about that are a necessity based upon CDC recommendations on social distancing, on face masks, things of that nature. And the concern that I have is the point of emphasis that will be put on the education, continuing to those students that are behind or that were behind. Will there be resources? Will that be put at a priority? All I've heard was the new standard, the new way of learning, remote learning, classroom learning. And I just have a concern how much is going to be done, how much is going to be instituted in lieu of the new requirements that face us today. And will our students that are behind and were behind before the pandemic began, will there be emphasis put on them? Will it be closely monitored on getting them caught up to the education expectation moving into the new school year, and what plans are going to be set aside to make sure that is going to be closely monitored. That's all I have now. I appreciate the time.
Thank y'all. Yeah, so to introduce myself, my name is Tashawn Montgomery. I'm an educator with Young and Aspiring Americans for Social and Political Activism, YASPA. I graduated from DPS back in 2015 and then proceeded to graduate from the University of Denver in 2019. So I'm coming back as alumnus too, speaking from my experience. I have siblings in the system, and I would really love to encourage the board to prioritize increased social, emotional, and academic needs for our students as they come to terms with the trauma of the last 4 months, both racial trauma and the trauma of COVID-19 that they've had to experience, especially those from historically and systemically marginalized communities and those who come from protected classes. Adding on to that, I want to urge y'all to look deeply into the CARES Act and the funding that DPS is receiving from that, and figuring out how you can use those funds to address the needs of our students, especially the social and emotional ones again. I even want to encourage y'all to tap into some of those district reserves to keep those services, to keep the programs that the students of colors really rely on within their school experiences, because it's very necessary. And if we want to show that we're there for them, then we need to keep the services that really impact them. Another thing is acknowledging the discrepancies between programs. A lot of traditional programs don't receive the same love that the big name programs receive. So when we talk about our budgets, we want to make sure that students who aren't in any fancy name programs are also recognized and valued the same way as the other academics in their community are. I want to pass the mic to my parents, Cheryl and Manta Montgomery, who want to just throw some of their concerns and thoughts too.
Good afternoon. I want to thank you for this opportunity. And I am a mother of 5 children who've taken the DPS system. And one of my main concerns is going forward, we need to know who's on the Board of Education. What type of interest do they have in the DPS system? It has to be more than, okay, I'm qualified because I come from this background or some other background. But are your children a part of the DPS system? What do you have to gain and your values going forward with the people or the children in the Denver public school system? So, and also the mental health. We want to keep the information there or opportunities when our children need help in this system. And we need to make sure that opportunity and the funds stays there for mental health.
Well, just following up on what my name is Manta Montgomery, and I'm a father, again, of 5 DPS graduates, and they've done quite well, but I've had the opportunity to see people not do quite so well. And, right now, my question is, I know we're talking about funding and that sort of thing, but how are we going to leverage this opportunity that we're in right now? We're in the midst of some really tremendous social change, and we're seeing kids at the high school level and young people wanting to understand what's going on in their country and how they can help change things that they see are obviously not right. And they have a level of political activism in them today as young people that I haven't seen. I'm old enough to remember this since the late 1960s and early 70s when people were talking about the Vietnam War. So I want to know, is the school system willing to address, maybe at this point, looking at some of the more progressive telling of our history here in the United States, so that our children will feel strong and know that they had a great economic impact on this country. They had a great impact on the building of this country. And the reason that I'm asking this question this way is because I helped my son study AP history last year. And the history books that we're working with right now puts us where we are today, where people are in the street feeling undervalued and feeling that their sojourn here in the United States has been not well spoken of or well cared for. So I definitely want the school board to address how we're going to look at history going forward and what commitments we're going to make to the telling of history in a way that makes people proud and strong, and also what steps are the school system here is the school system here taking to bring in more teachers who look like people who actually go to school here? Because again, with 5 kids graduating Denver public schools at George Washington High School, which looks to me to be very, very much a diverse school with a lot of Black students, by the time we get to graduation, it's all white. So I just want us to kind of look into those things, because our country is asking us to, as adults, to make changes, and we have the opportunity, whatever the budget is. That's all I have. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Greetings, my name is Sierra, a student speaking from Dr. Martin Luther King Early College, as well as a young aspiring American for social and political activism, also known as YASPA. Budgeting towards multiple psychologists is needed during a time of such tragedy. Black at that, all students need a safe space to express our emotions, considering the fact that authority we lift up to doesn't guarantee safety. We need a chance to express how we feel about not feeling safe to walk home. We need a chance to express how we feel about not being able to breathe in masks for 7 hours straight during school, and express how we feel about our insignificant lessons. Speaking on insignificant lessons, we could change that by teaching our students about Black culture. Knowledge is power, and power is what our Black students are lacking due to not learning about our own history to its fullest truth. Many of my peers are aware that we're living in history right now. However, they also have no understanding on what is truly happening. We can disclude this lack of power by budgeting into African American studies and DPS, because learning about our own history is the first step taken to impact our own future. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Angel Monqua. I'm an incoming sophomore at DMOK Early College, and I'm a young aspiring American for social and political activism, or YASPA. In the last 4 months, the climate of our society has changed drastically. We've been facing this deadly virus as it continues to spread throughout our communities, taking away our loved ones and leaving us with emotional scars. We've had to resort to remote learning, which has deprived students of the many resources, such as our Denver Health school-based clinics, mental and emotional support, counselors, therapists, social workers, trusted adults, and for some, a guaranteed meal. As if matters aren't already unfortunate, this virus is the only thing taking loved ones away. We face a racial pandemic, countless social justice issues, and see history being repeated. Our nation has turned a blind eye unto the cries of its minorities, and the pain we have to live with is unbearable. Immigrants are being raped and abused in ICE camps. Several indigenous women have gone missing. Yemen is facing the worst humanitarian crisis as we speak, and Black men and women have been repeatedly killed. Yet our national leaders are nowhere to be found. These aren't news stories to some of us. These are reoccurrences that we face within the communities, and we've been forced to normalize this pain. DPS, I come to you representing the Black and Brown students you underlook. I come representing those communities that have faced the multiple losses. These couple of months, even days, are uncertain. As the board who's supposed to serve each individual in Denver Public Schools, you cannot also disregard our needs. Recognize our voices, acknowledge our pain, see our hurt, and don't leave us from the budget planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. Thank you to everyone. What powerful voices we have heard here today from parents, from students, from advocates, believing that this is a moment that we have to do differently. You've heard from all of these comments that we cannot continue to operate as we have, budget like we have, spend like we have, plan like we have, because the world is not as it was. COVID-19 has exposed the inequities that have been very real in the lived experiences of many of the people that you see on this press briefing. Many of us have lived the inequities, and we say to the DPS Board of Education, now is the time for you to make the right decisions to ensure that those inequities are abolished. We demand, we encourage that you would have the courage to act to ensure, as Nicholas said at the beginning, that things like the Black Excellence Resolution are not set on the shelf because of these funding challenges, that we don't kick this thing down, that we don't kick this can down the line and this become a budget crisis that change our district for years to come, for generations to come. We need you to make the right decisions now, because you believe that all of the faces on this press briefing matter. You know, we've seen for a long time schools in our communities, kids that look like us struggle and suffer because of a lack of resources. We've seen it, our kids have lived it, and we say no more. We say no more. Now is the time for the DPS Board of Education to live up to its moral, its ethical, and legal responsibilities to ensure that the budget is focused on meeting the needs of students. That's why we exist. That's why we are a public school district for children. It's not time for us to make things more comfortable for adults. It's time for us to see the discomfort that our children have experienced, to see the inequities that our children have experienced, and to make things right. In 1963, Dr. King gave a great speech in front of the Lincoln Memorial. And he said in this speech that they had come to the nation's capital to cash a check for justice, a check that he said had been returned marked insufficient funds as far as America's treatment of its people of color. And we say the same thing today. We say that over all these years that some of us have raised our children in this district, some of us have been students in this district, some of us that our parents and grandparents have been students in this district, we say that DPS has defaulted on its promises to students of color. And we ask you now to make the right call, to do the right things, to ensure that the world that we look forward to is not the same world that we've been living. There is no going back to normal. There is no there is no normal. We have a new reality. And in this new reality, we're calling the DPS Board of Education to make the right decisions that prioritize our children, that prioritize necessary transformations in the curriculum, necessary transformations in trauma supports around all social and emotional care. Very important. It's very important that in this moment, we don't treat it like any other moment, for it calls to us to make the necessary changes. And I hope you've heard all these voices here. I hope you've heard every last one of these voices. And I pray that the wisdom in these voices will guide your decisions. We'll now open it up for questions from any of our press that are here at the press briefing, and we will answer those as best we can. Okay. Seeing no questions, we're gonna let Ariel close us out. Ariel, if you wrap us up and do your thing.
Thank you all so much for coming today. If you have any questions, we've provided contact information for media that's here today. And in addition, we'll be sending out this recording to media. And thank you all so much for coming. The contact information is on the screen.
Thank you, everyone. Great job.
Thank you.